So, hello, Boghdan. It is nice to see you again and to share thoughts with you. I hope you are well in these challenging times. So, I have with me Boghdan Ferens, a long-term fighter for democracy, I should say, in Ukraine, and founder of SD platform. Boghdan, you will share with me your views on current crisis, threat that is coming from Russia and possible consequences not only to Ukraine and its democracy, but for the rest of the world as well, and for our region of Western Balkans too, because experts used to say that the two weakest spots for peace in Europe continent are actually Ukraine and Western Balkans, specifically Bosnia and Herzegovina and Montenegro. So, Boghdan, good day to you, and thank you for taking your time to be with me today. So, first of all, what is the situation there in Ukraine, and how does war threat affects people's everyday life? How people actually live under these tough circumstances?
Dobar dan, Marsha. It's really a pleasure to meet you too, virtually. And I hope that my just small remarks will help maybe to see the situation more broader. I should and I will try to be more practical and maybe share some view from the Ukrainian point of view. First of all, concerning the current situation that we have, and how Ukrainians are feeling. When the escalation in informational context, just started, in Ukraine, we were like observers, firstly, because it is not a first time for us. Last year, I think in April, May, it was a big, information flow concerning the possible escalation. And it was a rise of awareness at the international level. And as I made some forecast, it was an instrument and tool for Putin just to start the negotiation with Washington. And I think that Kremlin is trying to use this tool as, the tool of possible escalation and open aggression against Ukraine as a tool to press and to put pressure on the West. And we were not so, in the behavior as people with scary, all these things. But at the same time, we have, unfortunately, the war for 8 years, from 2014. It means that people somehow used to feel insecure.
Yeah.
But the second way of this information, flow and the different rounds of negotiations, I think influence a lot on behavior too, because now we have more and more, internal discussions, how our people should be secure, what kind of threat we should just expect from the east, maybe from the north, because the situation with Belarus, and they have this common exchange and some military training, so some kind of this. And I would like to say that our government is trying to explain people that we should be more calm, but at the same time we should, of course, be prepared for different scenarios. And I personally share this point of view, because when you are in war with Russia, you should be, mobilize every hour, every minute, because everything could be possible.
So, you, according to your opinion, whether it's going to be war or not?
It is questions that I just received for last 3 weeks, I think, every day from not only my friends, but from our partners, from comrades, from different countries. It's quite difficult to predict, of course, but as an analyst, I would like to share some thoughts about these possible scenarios. I think that at this stage of the process, the open war against Ukraine is not, how to say, a main goal of Putin and Kremlin. I think they are trying to use this fear in their negotiations and they, how to say, hybrid war against the West, and especially against Washington. But at the same time, after 2014, I think the West is expecting different behavior from Russia Federation too, It means that for now, we see some kind of desire from opponents, from the collective West, with Biden and Moscow, to continue the negotiation process.
Yeah.
But as I'm trying to follow the situation from some articles or analytical research from the Russian side, they are trying to focus more and more on this scenario as one of the possible scenarios. And it is a big difference because several years ago, the discourse was on other topics, not as on the topic as Russia could just threaten Ukraine and could just have a war in the center of Europe. But now, as you see, these changes have been dramatically put into the current global agenda. And we should realize that it's not a way out of the security situations that we have now, especially for the countries like Ukraine and maybe like Balkan region too, the country in between.
Yeah, I see that. So in case of war, so you think that it's most probably some kind of hybrid and irregular warfare, not massive invasion to Ukraine?
The price of the massive invasion will be quite higher. And the main weaknesses of Russia, I think, they are really they expected to finish the process with the Nord Stream 2.
Yeah.
And as you just remember, at the beginning of summer, I think, it seemed like the situation is just the Nord Stream 2 will be in the operation capacity and it will be everything okay for Russia and for Germany. But till now, the process is not finished, and we just can follow the discussions on certification and the necessity to do this in accordance to the EU law and so on and so on. And Russians realize that this one of the main, benefit in the energy strategy in the context of dependence Europe and Russia. They have some problems and they can just lose this.
Yeah.
It means, and now we can follow the Biden statements usually, if some kind of aggression will be, Russians should just forget about Nord Stream 2 for for some years, I think. And it means that for them, for Russians, I think they are not so interested in such kind of dramatic scenario in this energy policy dimension. And Berlin and Germany, they have a new government and new chancellor, Olaf Scholz, Social Democrats, our comrades, yeah. And I'm not sure that Russians would like to, to have a quite bad relationships with the new government and with new chancellor. It means that in the context of reshaping Normandy format, Germany is playing now the crucial role. And just yesterday or 2 days ago, it was a meeting in Paris at the level of the advisors to the head of states. And it was some kind of preparation processes for the organizing a possible meeting. We'll see. Yeah. But I mean, from the other point of view, Ukrainian army is not now as Ukrainian army in 2014. You know,
yeah.
A lot of our soldiers have a real experience of fighting, and now we are receiving more and more military support and weapons from the West. And it means that the price of the open invasion could be much higher than it was expected before.
Yeah, but I know that, and we heard a lot about the preparation for actually war from your side. But what else Putin wants from Ukraine or with Ukraine except Nord Stream, and how does he plan to get it? And is it this only way to threat by war, or there is some kind of solution for diplomacy between the?
I think I think the arsenal of the Kremlin is quite limited, you know.
Yeah.
Because it is a heritage from the Soviet past that you can use only your military power and as a main tool of negotiations, unfortunately. Yeah. And it means they are just now continuing. If you have some quite of weak economy and other problems, internal problems with democracy and with all these things, it means that usually you will use your main, advantage in this negotiation process.
Yeah.
And I think they just, they have this potential, unfortunately. They just try to modernize the army. They are trying to be active in several campaigns in Syria, you know, in some other parts of the world. And they escalated the situation on the border with Ukraine. They made this illegal annexation of Crimea, and it means that it is a main tool for them to, to defend, as they call, their own security interest. The main, I think, priority for them, for Putin, is not to give the opportunity for Ukraine to be a NATO or EU member state. And I think one of the main topic for them, and it's quite sensitive issue in the security context. But at the same time, Russia agreed with last extensions, of the NATO.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was during the period of Putin.
Yeah.
It means that now they are trying to just raise their awareness and to, to persuade the Western opponents that for them, Ukraine is a vital interest in the security context, and so on, from the historical point of view, and so on, so on, so on. But at the same time, the main question for us, what we as Ukrainians, as people who would like to live in democratic state and who would like to have some secure, in the global context. What should we do? Because now we are really dependent on the situation between the Washington and Moscow, between the West and Russia, and usually it is how to say. It is not so easy to push your own strategy in the context of foreign policy. And as we just declare, and we have this in our constitution, we would like to be someday a member of the NATO and of the EU. But as you see now, we don't have a consensus inside the NATO member states, and I think it's just it could be understandable, but at the same time, what is the alternative?
Yeah, exactly. So, in our region, we faced with something which is called the Serbian world. It's from my perspective, it's similar with something which exists in Russia, and that's Ruski Mir, that's Russia. Mm-hmm. So could you please explain a bit more what is the meaning of that project, Russian World, Ruski Mir?
It is a narrative that just used as official narrative of Kremlin's in propaganda and in hybrid informational operations, I think, because they are trying to, to use some historical arguments or some narratives as a tool to push the information campaign and cover the people outside, for example, of the Russia. They are using, for example, the language as a tool too. They are using some common historical heritage from the Soviet period, and the problem is that sometimes it's quite difficult to challenge this this pushing, because now in Ukraine, I think we are quite experienced in preventing this kind of influence, but at the same time they have a lot of resources, for this. They have TV channels. The Russian propaganda is quite professional. It's much more and more professional because they spent millions of dollars, for this from the state budget. And I think we should just analyze the behavior of Russia in more complex approach, when they are trying to use different tools, different instruments to just to cover not only neighbor countries, but targeted audiences in different countries, including West, by the way.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's quite a big threat, in this information era in which we are living now.
So the USA, United States, and NATO responding this week to the Kremlin's demands in writing, and the ball is now in Russia's court. So as we actually understood, Ukraine will fight if need be. So Ukrainians don't expect actually the West to do it for them, but they rightly expect help. Sorry. So. Mm-hmm. What does Ukraine expect from the
West,
partners? Yeah,
I think the good point is that now we are not romantic Ukrainians, that are expecting soldiers from the NATO or something like this. We are realizing that if the situation will dramatically will be escalated, we should defend our country, our territorial integrity for the 100%. But at the same time, it was not so, how to say, positive story when last week, for example, we just read a lot of news from the media that foreign diplomats just were evacuated or something like this from Ukraine, and a lot of diplomats just from Western countries just moved to the countries of originals. And this feeling, I think, give the opportunity to realize that in the case of bad scenario, we will be somehow alone, against this Russian bear. Yeah, we are receiving support, political support. We're receiving the military support now. It's quite important, especially when you just have this war on the east of Ukraine. But at the same time, we realize that the peace and the desire to find some diplomatic solution for us will be crucial. And we hope that the situation will be maybe not so positive, but at the same time will be under control.
Yeah, I read reports actually every day about what's happening there, and something what I read a couple of days ago from GMF, German Marshall Fund from United States. So it used to say that Western unity is actually key for Ukraine. So when we talk about unity, it seems to me that Ukrainians are disappointed by Germany, in particularly in this case and in this context. So, is that true?
Last week it was a big hate, in all social media and TV channels and so on, in the context of Germany, and that as we expected support, for example, military support from Great Britain. We received some kind of weapons and so on. And Germany just plays other role in this whole regards. And I think that the bilateral relations just now is not on the proper track, And I, as social democrat, and person with some kind of experience of understanding internal situation in Germany, I can understand why Germany is behaving in such a way. Because, of course, they have their own national interest, first of all. Yeah, and they are trying, politicians, and new Chancellor Olaf Scholz, they are trying to reflect the desire of the people of voters, first of all, and they, of course, would like to, to be some kind of moderator and to balance in this triangle, Germany, Ukraine, Russia, because we all know from the history that the relationships between Berlin and Kremlin was and still is quite, special. These relationships were changed, I think, after 2014. And but at the same time, it's quite difficult to explain to Ukrainians why, for example, Germany is not so active in providing weapons for defense. But at the same time, Germany is one of the key financial donor to Ukraine. And they just spent a lot of money for different projects, especially connected to the reform processes, decentralization, humanitarian issues, and so on, so on. That's why the possible problem could be when we will not really understand the German position, and the bilateral relations will be not so good, and it will help Russians to strengthen their relationships with the German political elite. I'm afraid a little bit about this, and I'm trying for my with my some possibilities to sometimes to explain that the reality is that all countries have their own national interests, first of all, and after that, of course, they are trying to stick to the democratic principles and so on, solidarity and so on.
So thank you, Boghdan. This was a brief conversation about situation in Ukraine, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with me. I'm sure it will be very interesting for a whole region to hear these kinds of words from you. So thank you for your inputs and contributions. It will be more than helpful for many of us to understand the situation much better and comprehend it in its full capacity. We will continue actually to follow the situation there closely and analyze all the implications and consequences to the democracy in Ukraine and all over the world, actually, and also in our region. So thank you, Boghdan, once more.
Thank you.
And good luck with your important fight there, and please take care.
Thank you, Bacha. Thank you for the invitation. I think that we as progressive social democrats should be very active in finding the peaceful solution of this really very difficult security issues. And I think we as countries with such not so easy regional situation, we should be more in solidarity against all these threats.